PR Connections Radio presents.
Hello, and my name is Penny Tindall, and I am the local Summerlin publisher of Desert Foothills Living. I will be hosting this podcast called The Professionals on the first and third Wednesday of every month. Join me as I interview local business owners, community leaders, and nonprofits and hear their story on how they thrive in Las Vegas, what's up in Las Vegas, and just some friendly conversation. So join me on the podcast, The Professionals. Penny Tindall, thanks again. Have a great day. Hello, and welcome to The Professionals. We meet every Wednesday on the first and third Wednesday of the month at 10:15. And today I have a good friend and guest, Chris Dyer with Chris Dyer Consultant. So go ahead, Chris, and say hello to the internet world out there.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you, Penny, so much for allowing me to come here and present some information and some stories on how we can help make the world a better place.
Yes, I do remember meeting with you a couple times. One time it was at a network event, and then I've met you with some entrepreneur business partners like the Polka Dot Group. And you've always been there to talk about empowering women. So today we're going to talk about, you have a few events coming up, but our main thing is I'd like you to talk about how women may need your services.
Well, yes, Penny, and it's interesting when we stand on the sidelines and just watch what's going on in the world today, and then I look at how I could make a bigger contribution. My position here with you and your platform is to really help women understand that becoming recession-proof in the 21st century is a very important skill set. And there's equal amounts of compassion, but also the courage, right? And the commitment to oneself and the commitment to keep going, keep growing, keep investing in yourself. So we don't get knocked around and we don't have rugs pulled out from underneath us. And so I know when we go further, we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, absolutely. I love the idea of number one, woman empowerment, but being recession proof. The culture has changed. Every year it's a different thing that we have to deal with as women. A lot of times women do not support other women. And so you're there to give the self-confidence. So then you're sitting there helping other women, which in turn help yourself as a woman. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And one of the ways that I teach women how to do that is very similar to me showing up on your podcast and in your radio station is how are we showing up in the world? How are we putting ourselves in rooms so people can see and hear the message? And when we show up, someone is listening and they need to be inspired by that message. And when women show up and demonstrate how they've overcome and transcended their story, their trauma, it gives other people hope. Men and women, right? I mean, we're not here to not serve everyone. Right. And we live in I can't, I'm just going to stay in my lane. I mean, I'm a woman of many years with much experience, lived experience, and that's where the wisdom comes from. And with that, we get to share that with other women so they can move on quicker, so they can transcend their story, so they can brush themselves off and know that they're supported. And you mentioned, lack of support is one of the largest reasons why women continue staying stuck in their past or in their circumstances. And so when we can show women that they really truly have support, they can begin again or try again or try something else, iterate and innovate. That's the moral of the story, is always be willing to brush yourself off and keep going.
That's so true. I mean, we did have a big event happen, COVID, and with that, people learned to pivot. A lot of people lost their business. A lot of people lost their jobs, if they had jobs, and then they learned how to work from a home office, and they learned to pivot. I mean, that is my favorite word. One obstacle comes to the front of you, go to the left or go to the right and continue to pivot. And so that's kind of where you are, I believe, with supporting women, not only in network groups like Polka Dot, but also with your own personal consulting business. So
Absolutely.
let's step into your personal consulting business.
Well, I like to think of myself as sort of being an expert on the bounce back, the comeback story, right? And here's the truth of the matter. We're all still writing our story. If we're breathing and talking today, we're still writing the pages of our story. And then I mentioned the 3 B's of the bounce back. We've all experienced at least one or more of these different stories in our lifeline. It's either bankruptcy, whether it's financial, emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual bankruptcy, right? I mean, what exists in one part of our life can also show up in another part of our life. So there's bankruptcy, and then there's betrayal. I mean, who on this planet has not been betrayed by someone or an unmet expectation, right? And so how do we heal ourselves and brush ourselves off to try again? And then there's the bereavement, and bereavement is just a flashier word of saying grief. We've all experienced some type of grief or loss, and it's how can we more quickly understand how all of these 3 things have been positioning us for power, right? And so what I do is I help people understand life from a different perspective, how the emotions create the experience so that they can more quickly transform and get off of the old story and begin writing their new story, or editing the old story and creating more impact for themselves, their families, their communities, and the world. Everybody wants to save the world, but we must start with first saving ourselves and being committed to ourselves.
That's correct. I mean, I remember meeting you. It was my first year as a publisher, and I'm now in my second year starting in May. And I was overwhelmed. I was starting a new business. I did not have any support. It was me. I mean, I had support from my children, but to go to local businesses and try to, explain what my forum was, it was a lot of knocking on doors, a lot of doors closing on my face. And I had to keep my self-confidence and keep true to myself, right? Because a lot of times people are going to bring you down without realizing they're bringing you down. They might say, Penny, I can get you a job at a bank or something like that. You have so much personality. Let's do this. And I'm like, no, I want to stay focused and I want to be my entrepreneur. And this is where I want to be, right? But I do have to pivot. So I know that we were talking about self-confidence, and a lot of times I sit there and I finish the sales call, and then I'm like, what did I do wrong? It wasn't what I did wrong. It might have been just bad timing. It could be they can't afford it. So I have to, like I said, reset my mindset. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 times a day.
Right.
As a salesperson. So let's talk about, I know that you said on March, you're going to have a great event. And I'm definitely going to be part of that event. Let's talk about that, on your event on making us recession proof and supporting other women.
Absolutely. So it's a sales confidence boot camp. And what I've learned in over 30 years of sales is just keep showing up, right? And then altering the perspective and the mindset and becoming the master of your energy and emotions and your ego, so it doesn't run you all over the place. So it doesn't pull your energy down, just like you said, in your own experience. You got a phone call, it didn't work out the way you had hoped, and yet you're still showing up, you're still proceeding. And I mean, just for example, a sales lesson from, I think the first sales lesson I learned 30 years ago was, no today doesn't mean no 6 months from now, right? People aren't ready for you now, but they may be ready for you in the future, right? And so what you're doing is a beautiful example of keep planting seeds, keep watering, keep nurturing, right? And when people come around or their resources shift and change, and maybe their business changes, another observation is, what we're doing today isn't the same thing we were doing 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? So holding that space and growing with people, being witness to entrepreneurs growing up in the community, business owners growing and shape shifting, right? And when that happens, guess what? They're going to remember you and they're going to bring you along with that journey. And so your job in PR is to be a partner with other business partners in the community.
That's right. I always tell people that let me learn about your business, and maybe it's not a good fit now, but I can definitely be a great referral partner or a business partner, or we can collaborate in other ways. And that actually does work. I mean, it's not always the me mentality that a lot of times people go into sales. You can have that. I just got a bluebird yesterday, and what that is in the publishing world, because that's new for me, is somebody called and said, "Hey, I've been getting your publication for the last 6 months. I just moved to Las Vegas and I started my own business, and I love what you do. Can you come by my office tomorrow?" And of course, I'm saying yes, but it's those kind of things that kind of make me feel better, right? And it's a positive. It's kind of a a boost, as they say. So with your focus on March, why don't you tell us about this event? Like, how are you marketing it, and how can other women connect with you to learn about this event? It sounds very exciting.
Oh, no, thank you. Well, the lead pages are being in construction right now,
Yeah.
getting on more stages this month, and this being one of them, and just promoting word of mouth, but also in my social media marketing, and we'll create the lead page. But Sales Confidence Bootcamp will be 4 weeks. It'll be all virtual, so people from all over can participate, and it's an hour a week for 4 weeks. And what it is, it really does give the attendees an opportunity to get some content, be poured into, over deliver the value, right? I mean, you're going to get way more than just 4 weeks worth of content, but between each week, you get to implement, you get to integrate it and synthesize it and understand how it's going to work for you. With every course, there's always going to be the work behind the scenes. You don't just show up, don't do the work and expect to have the success. The results come when we actually get in the material and start understanding how to apply it for ourselves. So that will be a 4-week, and it will be repeating. So if March doesn't work, we'll start it again in April. It'll be a perpetual course with the opportunity for those who maybe want to do some deeper diving, really get into some nitty gritty, maybe releasing some old limiting beliefs that are pretty deep down. That might take more than a month. There's always that opportunity. But women who are truly committed in investing in themselves, investing in yourself, you will always see a return. It is the only investment that you can't lose on, right? If you're going to gamble on something, gamble on yourself. Every penny, and I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in my growth and development through different coaches and teachers and programs, so I could understand myself and understand my story and how it's really beautifully positioned me to be in today's society, in this world, and showing women how they can break free from tradition, how they can break free from conventional thinking and conformity. And that's really what the modern woman, that's what's demanded of us, to really, truly adapt and be recession proof, is always being willing to show up and pivot. I'll use your word.
I love it. Show up and pivot. And with this perpetual training, so if you miss something or you need to jump back on, it's something you can do. Is there going to be any type of forum that you can go on there? And is there going to be any type of discussion group, or is that something that you might be working on at a later time?
I haven't decided which platform. I don't know if I want to use the traditional Facebook. I may opt in using a different platform that's not dependent on Meta.
Yes.
That's more when we talk about, expanding our reach, having your email list, growing your email list, and nurturing people in different ways other than traditional social media, because we don't know. Again, that's another one of those things that we're borrowing other people's platforms and teaching women how to truly create their own brand and their own platform, so that other powers that be can't change their mind, change the rules, change the algorithms, and that we can sustain and keep growing and growing. If we want to change, it's up to us. It's not somebody else pulling the strings for us.
Yes, we are not puppets. We are women. We are strong. And I know that you are part of a couple of different women organizations. And I'd like to touch base on that because, you know, a lot of people know that I do networking, but I always say not all networking is networking. Some of it is just wasting your time and not working. You're just passing out your cards, shuffling them in your pocketbook, and not doing anything. So I know that you are part of a group that are there to empower women, to educate women. And I know that you are like one of the main boards. Is that correct?
If
For
you're
Polka
referring,
Dot Women?
well, for Polka Dot Powerhouse, yes.
Yes.
There is a chapter here in Las Vegas, and I became the managing director actually a year ago this month. Actually, I'm getting ready to celebrate. Yeah. But I had been a part of this organization already for 4 years before I became the managing director. So I knew the integrity of the leadership and being very much in alignment and being very inclusive, who they are, who they say they are. And when we put ourselves in different rooms, we, you know, over 25 years, I've been a part of women's groups for over 25 years. And some of them actually are very dramatic. And I don't want drama. I didn't want drama in my life. And I didn't want to perpetuate drama in being groups that fed on that. So Polka Dot Powerhouse is an all-inclusive group. And what's different from other traditional networking is not all women have a business. So there's a time and a place to really develop deep relationships and connections and knowing women. And when maybe you've been a business owner or you've worked and now you're on the other side of that, well, where are your connections? You know, if your friends have moved away, your family's passed on, women still need other women to thrive and survive and to be supported in life, not just business. Now, you know, we have women of all age groups, women in business and without. But another women's networking group that I've been with longer is eWomen Network. Again, I joined eWomen. That was the first women's business networking group I joined in 2019. And that has a different energy. It is more specifically geared towards women who are growing their business, investing in themselves and their business. So there's two entirely different philosophies for each group, but each one has helped shape me and support me while I'm doing my own growing and, you know, up-leveling my skills for my life, for my business, and knowing that I have support in all four corners, not just one or not at all. So, but I love visiting other rooms, and that's part of how you develop rapport in your community, is showing up in other rooms. We don't always have to join the groups, but we can make ourselves known and we can be like you and be a very valuable resource. You are a beautiful connector, Penny, and you've already connected me with other resources and other people who you know will complement my business. And that's how we do it. We add value to other people's lives. And that's part of the transformation, and not just being transactional, but also looking at the transformation over time. It's not a get rich quick. It's be bountiful and share that.
Be bountiful. You know, I tell people that, you know, for me, I remember my children and other people saying that I had a great work ethic. And I always thought that was a great. But then I realized that people were starting to say, you know, you're a workaholic. And I just thought about that, especially during COVID. And I said, a workaholic is kind of an alcoholic, right? So I realized that I had to change. And that's when I started thinking about what network groups were going to work for me. And now I am working on my health. And I'm working on a balance of life, because what is it if I'm coming home and then going back on the laptop, you know, because both my kids are grown now. What am I doing? You know what I mean? I am just working. So I think that these women groups that you talk about, it's also, like you said, empowering the woman to realize that, you know, you are worthy. You can take a breath, you know, go get your nails done, you know, go have tea with your bestie, but do know that you can close your laptop down. So I think that you actually kind of threw that at me when we were meeting at, I think, the Sterling Club, because I was kind of running like a crazy person, trying to connect people, but not connecting myself to myself. And now that I have my children in college or graduated, I realize that I'm not a balanced person and I'm really working on myself. That is my goal for 2025. So, to someone like me, tell me what would be your step when you meet someone that just says, I'm just so busy trying to get my business started. I'm just so busy I cannot think. I'm drowning, but I'm working. I'm stepping forward every day. So those kind of challenges, how would you, react to the ladies out there and maybe the gentlemen that feel like, they're just working and they're building, but they need to have a better balance?
Here's the irony. And I actually witnessed this years ago when I first started my first business. I'm on number 4 now and part of number 5. When I started taking better care of myself physically, my revenue tripled. Okay.
I love that.
Okay. God, universe, higher source. Here's the irony. When we start neglecting ourselves is when things start falling apart. When we start paying attention to ourselves and listening, and our intuition is the voice of our soul, right? When we start paying attention to how our bodies are feeling, or just energetically, how's our energy? Are we depleted? Are we deflated? Right? And being honest and not getting, not being afraid to be vulnerable. It's like, well, when I'm not feeling well, or my body's ill, or I'm recovering from something, that puts us in a vulnerable state. So what we get to do is make sure that we're paying attention to our needs, body, mind, and spirit. Okay. And wherever there's a void, we get to fill that void ourselves. What is lacking? What do we need to nurture? What do we need to give ourselves time? And time is our number one asset. Our energy, our time, and our attention are our most valuable assets. And again, in society, we've been conditioned to be consumers, right? We've been marketed to so heavily, and there's this frenetic energy of not being enough, not doing enough, not having enough. When we really get super still and quiet and start listening to ourselves, we realize, wow, I really have everything I need. My needs are met. All this other stuff is just sort of superficial fluff. It's nice to have, but we don't really truly need it. What we truly need is to give ourselves attention, to pay attention, to nurture our needs, to take care of ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, right? And when we do that, guess what? We get rewarded. More opportunities come our way. It's like, oh, now you're ready to handle more. Here's more, because you're taking care of yourself. Otherwise, it's a hot mess express. And this is part of my story. Having survived on 17 years on antidepressants, right? You weren't expecting me to share that, but I was just going through the motions, right? I was on that merry-go-round just like everybody else, going through the motions, showing up just the way everybody else was expecting me to, being the traditional wife, the mom, the employee, right? The perfectness to everything. But on the inside, I knew I was a hot mess. And the default is to go find something to take away the pain, or to be able to just cope through life. And antidepressants was the choice. And it is for many people. So there's no shame in that. They're there for life or death, right? Until you can get yourself back on track, or you have tools or support or resources, which I had none of. I didn't know I had choices. And now I'm here to be a testament to show women that you have way more choices. We all have more choices than we had 20, 30 years ago. Now we're just talking about them and showing that it's okay to be vulnerable, but it's also okay to ask for help, and knowing that you're safe, and finding those safe places and safe people that you can have that open conversation with, that aren't going to judge you. And either you have a resource, or you know somebody who can be a resource, right? And I'm just a resource. I'm here to share the story. I've had many moments of living in my own personal abyss that I had to climb out of to be here.
Right.
Right. I didn't read it out of somebody's book. I actually lived it and can talk about it.
Yes. No, I understand that completely. Like, when I think back, I'm always was very busy. People say you're always running around. Now I try to do some type of routine every morning. I go to the gym, or do some type of exercise. I'm making myself a priority, which I didn't realize I wasn't doing, but I haven't done it for over 10 years, because once I got divorced, I put myself on the rat race and just kept running. You know what I mean? And I wasn't going to stop until I became very successful. And of course, for me, success was, money, because, my ex husband made a lot of money and I was starting at ground zero. So now I realize that, like you said, I am grateful. Every day I write down why I'm grateful, what happened great. I tell my kids, like, every day I tell my kids, oh, I had a great day. They're like, really? You always have a great day, Mom. And I go, I make a point to have a couple things that went well, right? Because there's always going to be something that brings me down. But yes, women need support. And that is why I brought you on, because I know that you're very passionate for people just like myself. And we understand how to collaborate and celebrate other businesses, that maybe it's not a win-win, but it can turn around. And like you said, a few months later, it's like, wow, thanks for thinking of me, right? It's always
Absolutely.
great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we are almost out of time, but I really like you to, and again, talk about the three different, I think they were our B's, right? The
Yes.
three B's, and a way for people to also be able to connect with you. Let them know your Facebook, your phone number, how you want them to contact you, so they can also learn about your great women's recession proof workshop that is coming in the future months.
Yes. Thank you. Well, we talked about the bounce back from the 3 Bs. And because I'm a creative, I've learned how to activate and use my right brain, which is part of what I teach also, because when we're so stuck in our stuff, it's very left brain and it's very masculine energy. And this is where women trip up, is they're always living in their masculine energy. So when we talk about taking care of ourselves, restoring and nurturing, that's a very feminine energy. And so there's a time and a place to navigate both, to charge and to go forth, but also to time to retreat, right? And to restore. And it's that flex and that flow of life. But the 3 Bs that I mentioned are bankruptcy. I thought we already covered these, did we?
Well, we did, but I like to recap it, because for me, this is how I connected with you. And that's when I realized that I was bankrupting myself and I was self-sabotaging. So I think these three things, the way you explain it, it kind of gives the dynamic about you and how you are caring for other people out there.
Well, absolutely. And this actually ties in very beautifully with the other business that I'm a partner of, because the woman that I'm a partner of has actually experienced all three of these things in the last year. And so when I correlate, right,
Yes.
when I correlate my life, it's like, oh, all women have experienced this. Very few have experienced all three of them in 1 year, right? And the resiliency and the resourcefulness to be able to quickly brush off. How quickly can we brush it off and keep going and be supported? That's the name of the game. But the bankruptcy, right? Whether it's financial, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, right? Most people think bankrupt, it's only financial. Well, my own life, that almost happened. My husband had a business, it wasn't working. We decided to walk away from it, and we're still moving forward, right? We put a lot of resources, time, and money into helping him develop a business that didn't go the way we expected. But it also taught me a lot as a woman of how much of my energy I was putting into him, helping to support him, which took away from me in my business, right? Going back to how women have been conditioned and conformed for other people's comfort, making sure our men, our husbands, our bosses, or whatever, their needs are taken care of, and we get left with the scraps. That stops today. So bankruptcy. The second one is betrayal. We've all been betrayed, right? Whether it's a spouse, a partner, a friend, a family member. The worst betrayal is the betrayal to ourselves. Okay, women. We must be our own best friend. And actually, another thing that I teach on is becoming your own soulmate, right? That's where you marry the masculine and the feminine energy that we all have within us. And that's that's the seat of your sovereignty, your power, your knowing that no one or nothing can pull the rug out from underneath you. They can try, as they might, but you're still standing on your ground. You're very grounded. And then the third one is the bereavement. We've all experienced love and loss, grief, loss of a business, loss of a loved one, loss of a family member or a child. It doesn't matter. The body, each individual processes grief and bereavement differently. And it's to give time and space and to understand that it's part of the life cycle. And that's, I think, a great observer just starts paying attention, learns how to pay attention to the patterns and the cycles of life. And then you get to decide, I no longer want to be on that merry-go-round anymore. Right. And you step off. And then you become a different version of yourself.
Perfect. So I have had a really great conversation. Like I said, sometimes it's a conversation, sometimes it's an interview. I do know you very well, so I feel like this was a great way for people to see your passion and how you thrive to help other women. So go ahead and let the folks know how to connect with you so they can have a one-on-one phone call, check your website, etc.
Certainly. I do have a scheduling link on my website. You can go to connectwithchrisdyer.com to have I call it a disco section, the disco ball, right? Because
I love that.
Well, because there's so many mirrors and sides to looking at our life and picking it apart and looking at the data. So yes, discovery call, connectwithchrisdyer.com. You can find me on Facebook, Chris Dyer, on Instagram, Chris Dyer Consulting. I am on LinkedIn as well. That one, I don't play a lot in LinkedIn world yet. That will be changing soon. There's been a lot of shifts and pivots, and one of the things I like to say is follow the energy. Well, the energy at the time wasn't what I wanted because my inner peace is my most prized asset. So I'm going to protect that at all costs.
Yes.
But thank you for the privilege, Penny. This has been lovely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So everybody stay tuned for me. I will be back on the Professional Podcast every first and third Wednesday of the month at 10:15. If you are interested in being in the podcast, please connect with prconnectionsradio.com. And again, have a blessed day. And number one, take care of you. Thank you, Chris. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye. It's Penny Tindall.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.